Welcome to the Board Game Secret Show. I am David, your host. This is episode 5. We have a packed week this week. I've got lots of stuff to talk about. We've got a week in review, everything that's happened on the channel, which was a lot this week. Mail call, some things that have arrived this week for me. I've got an anti-FOMO pick of the week for you. Usually it's FOMO. We're going anti this week. And that's for a reason, because I do also have a mini review on a crowdfunded game in Fled. We talked about it before. I happened to weasel my way into getting a last-minute prototype, and I'm going to tell you about that. We also have a couple of videos that I am watching right now, one in which is pretty spicy, not that kind of spicy. You'll see what I mean when I get there. And then the main topic is beauty versus brains. Do we have to pick in our board games? Specifically, I'm going to give you a handful of games that I think have both. As usual, I want to hear from you on this as you are listening to the show and you have a thought, literally any thought, knee jerk, stop it, pause it, throw it out there in the comments, go back, read through everything, comment on other people's comments. My hopes for this show are to create a conversation, and the only way to do that is with you. So if anything intrigues you, anything comes to mind, any games that you want to recommend relative to the things in which we're talking about, or you just want to tell me I'm wrong, totally okay. Get in the comments. This is a show to do that. All right. Ooh, my week. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest, if you know, and it has just been a brutal week. A few weeks ago, we had 70-degree weather for about a 4-day stretch, and then it's been nothing but, high 40s and rain. Going into the Easter weekend right now, I'm recording this on Saturday. We do have some sun, so I'm feeling a little bit better. I think things are looking up, in fact. And with this renewed energy and looking forward to the weekend, I was highly motivated. I put out for me, a ton of stuff. It's not Dice Tower levels, but, for me in my shed by myself, it felt like a lot of content. I'm trying some new stuff, so bear with me. Doesn't mean that the channel is totally changing or anything. I'm still kind of going to continue my core offering, if you will. But this week we started with this show on Monday, as now is always. And let's see, I also did a really stupid video around me reacting to comment sections on Board Game Reddit, a more NSFW Board Game Circle jerk on Reddit, and then a little bit of BGG. My stump speech for that is don't watch it. It's a total waste of time. It's just recording me wasting my time when I probably should be working. Let's see what else. I had my first stream. This is another thing you should not watch. It's really awful. The thing about streams, my hat's off to the people out there that just stream. I edit everything. And I don't know, I just kind of felt like I froze up, and I think you see that. I'm also playing a game in Dune Imperium Digital that I'm slowly acquainting myself with the meta. There's a little imposter syndrome in there because there's a ton of great creators out there in the interwebs that put out really good Dune content. This is just me getting smashed. I think the best part of that live stream is a thumbnail in which I blended my face with the Baron. So if anything, go check the thumbnail out, or maybe I'll put it up. I don't know. Let's see here. I put out a Septima review. Largely, not many people care about Septima. My timing is a little bit off, but I felt like it's a really good review. It's a really good game. If you're at all interested in highly strategic yet nicely implemented theme, beautiful game. It's Mind Clash sort of light. If you're interested in any of that stuff, go check it out. It's a really great game. And, spoiler alert, if you just want to know if it's any good, it's staying in my collection. It is, and you don't have to watch it. Then just go play it in the background, turn down the volume, and help the old algorithm for me. What else happened? And then I had an emergency meeting on Friday with you all, which was yesterday from recording this, and it was for Robot Quest Arena Bot Battle. I went and begged Wise Wizard to get my hands on the prototype. I'm a small guy, last in line, so I got it here kind of the last moment. As of yesterday, there were 5 days left in the campaign, and I just felt compelled, instead of kind of sharing my thoughts here on it, to make a video because it's great. I got it back to the table. In fact, I just got done playing it with my son once again. And if you watch the video, you'll know he beats me all the time. I say because he's using overpowered bots, but Wise Wizards went into the comments and assured me nothing is OP. I just suck. But I've been playing that thing a lot. If you haven't played Robot Quest Arena, it's just a really good, fun game. I will say base box for me is not it. you have to get at least the original expansion bots, because they give you defense cards, they give you upgrade cards, and other stuff I'm forgetting. But either way, they give you really good and totally new mechanics that aren't in the base box. The new stuff is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So if you want to know more about that, go check that video out. That thing dropped as well. All right. Mail call. Well, I just mentioned Robot Quest Arena arrived. I played it immediately, and I'm going to be sad to give that prototype away, but I will be sending that back, unfortunately. I got Fled, which we'll review in just a second, another prototype copy, and this is only my third prototype I've ever gotten. Frankly, it's hard to justify the smaller creators and giving prototypes. I just have to beg, borrow, and steal to get them to send it to me at the last moment. So this is another one of those cases. I'm going to share my thoughts there. I made a trade for 2 games. I got Barrage and ISS Vanguard. And ISS Vanguard, I think you can write down there. That is the insane boxes. I got 2 boxes that came with ISS Vanguard and Barrage. I'm going to get Barrage to the table today. I'm bribing my wife. It's another boring looking game for her, so I always have to bribe her to get those things to the table. I know she's going to like it. It's puzzly, network building. It looks really good. And a lot of you in the comments, especially relative to my Nucleum take, said I have to play Barrage. So guess what? I made a trade for it. We're playing it, and I'll talk about it next week. All right, and also after my video on I wish I had a game group, it's an episode, Board Game Secret Show episode number, I don't know, I'll put it up there. The wonderful people at Leader want to help Root get to the table for me at 2 players. So they have sent me the Marauders expansion. I'm really excited about that. There's hirelings in there as well. I'm going to, once again, bribe my wife and play some Marauders as well. I think my youngest son is going to be down for it also. I'm going to get that to the table and let you know, is Root a 2-player game? So that's Mail Call. This is the anti-FOMO pick of the week. And, I don't know about you, but I've been running out of money lately when it comes to board games. Like, these things are getting insanely expensive. So I want to highlight some games, and this may be a video series later on, that are available right now and are absolutely wonderful, proven commodities that you can get for really cheap, or you can get for relatively cheap, and definitely probably even trade for if you're a trader on BGG. It's Great Western Trail. Great Western Trail, I actually was doing kind of the timeline of my gaming career, and this is like 4th or 5th. This was right after Arnak for me, and I grabbed the original Great Western Trail. I still love that cover in that game. I'll never get rid of it. And, I don't do the favorite games of all time because I still feel it's like I've played so little, and it's just silly for me to say like, oh, these are the best games of all time. This is one of my favorite games to play continuously today. There's a lot of games I've acquired over the time in which I've been in the hobby that I really like and are exciting and fun, but they just don't come back. This one is constantly, probably once a month or 2, coming back out. The original is great, and there's some kind of like meta flaws in there, and if you search through BGG, there's certain kind of broken strategies, but all in all, Great Western Trail is wonderful. It's a deck building game, sort of at heart. The cards in which that you're acquiring are cows. You're trying to move on what amounts to a rondel through building tiles. Building tiles all have different actions that you can take, especially if you have the resources. You're trying to build your building tiles out onto the board. You can also do it in a way that hampers other players and they actually have to pay you. You're also trying to transport these cow cards. It's no duplicates, individual versions of them all throughout the trail to make deliveries. And you just kind of rinse and repeat. And as you make deliveries, you can score more and more points. As you acquire higher level cows, you'll be able to score more points as you deliver. There's also kind of a side mechanism as well, in that there's a railway that you're moving your train down and you can get bonuses as you do it. This is a favorite of ours. I did find one kind of flaw in this one, in that you can rush game end and front run the game, and you start to get more, you start to be able to move more spaces at once. And if you find yourself ahead in the game, you can kind of just race to the end because every time you make a lap, there is a mechanism that essentially acts as a timer. So you can start moving, I can't even remember, 4 or 5 spaces at once and just rush to the end, especially if you have a really good cow deck that you can deliver and score a ton of points. But overall, it's wonderful. I also did coverage on the New Zealand version, and it's great. I would say definitely start, in my mind, unless, I mean, if you're used to playing heavy games, you can certainly start with New Zealand. It's definitely Great Western Trail plus. It adds a lot to it. It's probably my favorite version of it. However, original will still get to the table more just because rules overhead. It's an easier introduction to newer players. And to me, it's also kind of a gateway game into heavier games in the genre. So that's Great Western Trail. It's 8.2 on BGG. It's ranked 15 overall, 13 in strategy. It's honestly just a wonderful game. If you haven't played it, check it out. I'd love to know what you think about Great Western Trail, and if you've played the trilogy, which one do you like? All right, we have Fled now. This is my mini review. I've got it back here. Hold on. All right, so this is Fled here. It's a pretty brainy tile layer. I came across this through some forum. In fact, it's, this only has 38 grand of a 50 goal. We are 4 days out. The reality of getting 12 would be tough. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to review this and why I reached out to the publisher. Published by Oddbird Games. That is, the pedigree there is Feudum. It's odd, it's quirky, and that's what Fled is. Fled is definitely an odd and quirky tile layer, and it's pretty unique. So this thing is 45 to 60 minutes. It is kind of a longer tile layer. Plays 2 to 4. I only played it at 2. And it's essentially a tile laying game with brains. You are starting kind of in your cell in the middle, and you're building tiles out until you can get to the outside and break out. Now, the tricky part is you don't win if you break out. You are trying to also score points by storing contraband. Contraband is part of the multi-use nature of these tiles. On your turn, you play a tile and it has to be on a matching room. There's rules around doorways and windows and having to match those up properly. And then you have to play 2 other tiles to do different things, like store contraband in your inventory, I guess it would be, and that scores you points at the end of the game. You can store up to 3 contraband, but you have to be in the right room at the right time. There's a whole mechanic around what is the right room at the right time, and you store those. And if you store a 4-leaf clover, you can store up to 4. So that's kind of how you maximize your points. And then you have to get out of the jail, and that gives you points also. The other kind of tricky dimension to this game is you can play these multi-use tiles as like a whistle, for example. And the whistle, you can then take control of a guard and have it go and capture and put shackles on another player. And there's definitely that component here. It's thinky in that you are building outwards, trying to get out, but also get to the right room at the right time to get those contraband. But also, if you have the opportunity to play something like a whistle, trying to capture the other player and shackle them, which gives them negative points at the end of the game. I found it was really fun and thinky. My younger son, I'll say, didn't love it. It's definitely a little more thinky, and he didn't kind of wrap his head around it so much, although he has played pretty advanced games. But for what this is, it had a surprisingly complex rule set. There's some rules overhead, and I wouldn't say it's incredibly complex. It's definitely kind of, a light game relative to a lot of heavy games out there. But for a tile layer, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. So I think if you like tile laying, it's a really great, unique take on it. It's a fun and quirky art style. If you're into that, that's definitely here, and it definitely has kind of like, an odd vibe, hence Oddbird Games, like Feudum. With only a couple days left, this will come out with really only 1 or 2 days left. I encourage you to check it out. I want to try to definitely highlight publishers that are using Kickstarter for the right reasons. We all know these really giant publishers that could probably publish these games, and they're still putting them on Kickstarter, getting a free loan from all of us to do so. That's a whole subject, but with that said, I want to call out the little guys here and ask you all to at least go check it out. Go, if anything I said seems interesting, go check it out in the last days of the campaign. It's relatively cheap, $40 for the Kickstarter edition. There's not much on Kickstarter that's under $100 anymore. So that's just another plus of going and kind of supporting a game like this. That is Fled, Mark Swanson, Oddbird Games. Check it out. There's only a little bit of time left. As a skillful transition and a nod to my reaction show, I have a comment of the week, and I think I'm going to continue to do this. This will incentivize you to really kind of think hard, be really witty, put the best comment possible out there, and you might be selected. And there might be, 10 or 12 people that actually watch this and see your comment. And in this case, from Neri Israeli, he says, "Get good, bruh." No more profound words were ever said. Now, context here, that is out of context, is, me whining and crying about how 7th Citadel was difficult and how I felt like, some of the mechanics and scenarios were, impossible and totally silly. However, that video is done really well if you want to go check out, why I quit 7th Citadel. But in this case, Nizraeli gives me the best advice to get good, bruh. All right, what am I watching this week? Speaking of that video about how I quit 7th Citadel, the OneStopCoopShop did a 7th Citadel review, and he does, I think, the 5 and 5, and either kind of measures like, it's 5 different points about the game and whether it was good or not. And I think he gave a very rare, all 5 points in which he brought up were positive. He loves 7th Citadel. I want to point out that it's totally, I'm all about differencing of opinions, and this video is totally the antithesis of what I had mentioned. He does mention some things as possible drawbacks, in which I also mentioned. So there's some agreements there, but check out that review if you want a balanced take on what 7th Citadel is, not just my I quit video. All right, so this is the spicy video pick of the week here. This is really a conversation starter, and this is a response by Room and Board to a video put out by Launch Boom that is responding to the $1 pre-pledge. And that's kind of the premise and where it all started. However, Room and Board came across kind of their, it's not really a mission statement per se, but it's a sort of an article or a blog on all these different tricks to use with your campaign. And it's basically kind of a marketing stump speech to why you should use them and how they can help you. So some more context is, I think Alex from Board Game Co. made a couple videos on this, specifically on the $1 pre-pledge, but the video really turned into a broader take on the ethics and morals of Launch Boom, especially talking about psychology and having to trick people into doing certain things. I went through and read the entire article myself, and it has kind of rides that fine line. And in fact, it has since been changed. To Launch Boom's credit, they have put a note saying that they changed some of the language, and there is an archived version. I didn't even read the new version. I just went straight to the archive because I wanted to see what the original context was. And I guess my take comes from, I'm more of a realist and largely cynical when it comes to this type of stuff. My professional background, I've been around plenty of marketing people, not in marketing myself, and kind of understand that much of what Launch Boom was saying is standard practice in marketing, taught in the top universities throughout the United States and employed in nearly every single corporate circle that there is. It's like there's the idea of using reciprocity, social proof, FOMO, all of those principles in which are talked about on Launch Boom's website, they're all around us. And to have a problem with Launch Boom, which I'm not saying you shouldn't, I'm just saying there's a lot out there that we consume and deal with on a daily basis that uses these principles. In fact, if you're a creator and you have monetization turned on, the ads that are running in the back of your video or in the middle of your video are using these same principles, or at least are companies that employ these same principles on consumers. I think the tricky part here is once a company kind of shows you how the sausage is made, and we can see that, especially when it's trying to kind of dumb down marketing speak and say, talk about psychological tricks. First of all, marketing is psychology. That's just, it's a branch of psychology. It uses psychology in a really, really big way. But I think that the trouble comes is when you stare it in the face and see how it's being used against you and even is explained to you in really simple form, it's a little bit tough to stomach, right? I think the tough part here is, it feels kind of bad. Yeah. But, my take is it's all around us. It's part of a free market capitalist system. It's an eventual outcome when there is a free market and competition within said market. You need to go grab attention, and you can definitely argue that these are predatory tactics. I'm not arguing against that whatsoever. I'm just saying it's kind of the way of the world, and I've accepted it. I understand and can see when marketing tactics are being used against me. And hopefully I can go to creators that I trust on YouTube that I don't feel are biased and can give me good opinions on what the product actually is, especially if they've seen a prototype version of it or whatever it may be. This is a large, broad conversation. Not that I am disagreeing with Room and Board here whatsoever. I'm just saying it's a much bigger problem than Launch Boom's little article. This is just the way everything works. And be careful about the ads that are running in the middle of our videos here if we're concerned. All right, so that is the spicy pick of the week. And by the way, I will have all of this stuff that I mentioned linked in the video, including the original article that Launch Boom is using here, and you can make your mind up for yourself. And let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about psychological tactics being used on you in Kickstarter campaigns. And also, do you take offense to those same tactics being used elsewhere? I'll leave it at that. All right, now to the main topic here. This is a little less controversial, a little more lighthearted here, I hope. Board game beauty versus brains, and do we have to choose? This was inspired by a BGG forum that is entitled Great Game or Real Looker. You don't have to choose. Brian Winston, ever so often the debate is stirred regarding do you choose a great game or a great looking game? And I always wonder why you wouldn't get both if those things are important to you. There's plenty of responses here, and actually the responses do get a little bit spicy, but we're not going to go over that today. We really want to discuss, do you prefer having a game that is a mechanical wonder? Do you need it to have incredible table presence, or do you need a little bit of both? In fact, I posed that, and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe now so you can also participate in these polls. I posed that to you all on a YouTube community poll, and let's check that out. So the Board Game Secret Show question of the week: would you rather a board game be a mechanical masterpiece, have stunning table presence, or I need a little bit of both? So here's the distribution here. Mechanical masterpiece at 51%. Stunning table presence. There are very few of you shallow folks out there that just want a pretty game. Everdell. I mean, I don't know. 4% of you are there. Everdell. There are some redeeming qualities of Everdell. I do have the complete collection, full transparency, which I fully regret. Anyways, and then I need a little bit of both is 44%. So right now, if you didn't participate in the poll, and even if you did, let me know in the comments, what do you want? Answer this question right here. I'd love to know examples of what you're talking about here. And we did have some comments. Bob & Co says, needs both. See Chip Theory catalog for multiple examples. Yes, if you like neoprene, dice, and poker chips, that is definitely on the list there. Business Time 83. I've been loving Raw New Edition. That one is a pretty game. Castles of Burgundy New Edition. I own that and absolutely love it. Parks in Onitama. Haven't played Onitama myself. They're all straightforward with lots of strategy and have great production. All right, Marco 7. I would add having a strong interest and well-implemented theme, to which I would say theme and mechanics, table presence would come last. That's an interesting. I almost wonder if that's a separate conversation around kind of thematic implementation. Like, are the mechanics connected to theme, or are we defining theme as kind of artwork that is creating a world in which you're playing with. I don't know. I think there's a debate or conversation. Marco, you might have inspired another conversation in the future. Prologue Theory, I show up for gameplay. Being easy on the eyes is a plus, but doesn't save it if the gameplay doesn't do it for me. Definitely agree there. And Gianfranco 4789, this seems like Le Havre versus Everdell, lol. I think it's a bit of both is the right answer, because ugly, mechanically rich games are the type I don't need to own. That's what BGA is for. Now, I take exception here. In this example, I'm sure Everdell is the pretty table presence game example, and Le Havre is the mechanics first example here. And let's take a look. I actually, as soon as I saw this comment, I went to look at Le Havre, and I mean, I think that honestly looks kind of cool. The art is sort of charming here. Anyways, that's not the point whatsoever. All right, last but not least, Tristan, you are an OG and definitely recognize you. I don't care about table presence as much as I do the art. The components can be average and I won't care. But if it's too bland, I don't like the art, then I won't play it often at all. That is a good point, right? There might be a separation between componentry, there certainly is, and art. So, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. So now I want to present to you why you don't have to choose. I have a handful of games here that both accomplish incredible mechanics, in my opinion at least, and incredible production/art, in my opinion at least. I recognize that this is subjective, but the moment you disagree or really agree, go in the comments, let me know that you do agree. And first on my list is On Mars. I've always been enamored with this game. There's always been something about Ian O'Toole's art that is just wonderful. And really, you can say this for all Lacerda games. The art and componentry is wonderful. Eagle Griffin does a great job, and there's just something about the clean, crisp imagery that Ian O'Toole employs, and I think it's a necessity in such complex games. Say what you will about On Mars, the mechanics are complex and deep, and definitely something in which checks the mechanical box for sure. Art is once again subjective, but there's just been something about how this game was produced and how beautiful it is that has always stood out for me. Speaking of Lacerda, Lisboa, this game is so beautiful. I mean, I don't even have to talk about the mechanic complexity of this game. You just know with that name, Lacerda, but you don't have to choose here for sure. I mean, check out this board. The components are wonderful, but the art is just stunning. And I will say that adds to what is a giant eye chart when you play this game, but it's absolutely beautiful. This definitely hits on the thematic implementation for sure. Also, mechanically, it's pretty top tier, sitting at an 8.2 rating on BGG. Yeah, this one's pretty special. And next up for me is Barcelona. Barcelona is a game I reviewed and I think is underrated. I really enjoy the action selection mechanism here. You basically employ workers or their citizens that are trying to move into these houses or these blocks that you will eventually build, but all of the actions are on a grid. Every time you choose a spot on that grid, you're choosing multiple actions. If you choose it also on the diagonal, you deal with, I believe it's a trolley mechanism if you're on one of the diagonal spots as well. It's just a really smart, thinky game, and I think it is beautiful production. Now, it's a board and dice game, so the actual componentry is pretty meh in my mind. But with that said, the art is really vibrant, and some people it might feel like it's a little too loud, but I personally love the mechanics of this game. I also love the art. That's one of the reasons that I can keep it in my collection, because my wife likes the pretty things. I like the complex kind of puzzly things. She does too. But she's more so on, she really needs to have the table presence there as well. And this one definitely fits that bill. This is kind of an odd one here. I just got done talking about how I quit 7th Citadel. It certainly wasn't for the table presence or art. This is a weird, almost lo-fi art style version. But the thing that really struck me in this game is it is thinky first and foremost. And the mechanics, whether I like them or not, are there. But the table presence that this thing has, once you build out a map and have explored an area, and then you have all of these kind of like side events going on there, it builds this really beautiful world that you can kind of look back on and say, oh, I really explored that. I think it is actually a really beautiful game and set in a really weird and odd world, and has just great art and, you know, and is in a great world. I won't spoil anything else because I have like a 40-minute video on it. So go check it out if you're interested there. But that's 7th Citadel hitting the list. Next on my list is actually agreeing with one of the comments out there. Basically any chip theory game. I mean, there's the 20 strong that's definitely dialed back, but you know, if you like extremely deluxeified componentry, it's got to be chip theory. PVC cards, poker chips, weighted poker chips, neoprene mats, really high quality screen printed or heat transferred printed dice. It's just one of a kind. I mean, there's really nothing else out there. Some people absolutely hate that about it. Let me know if you do. Let me know if it's just complete waste and you don't need anything like that ever. You're down for the thinnest cardboard possible as long as it plays well. But the thing about Too Many Bones in particular, and really all of Chip Theory's games, is they're really smart and thinky. Burn Cycle is another one. Hoplomachus is another one that come to mind. And the mechanics that drive it, certainly, you know, there's punishing and kind of luck-based mechanics, which are definitely tied to dice, but there's tons of ways to, and we'll talk about Too Many Bones. There's tons of ways to kind of mitigate that and build your character a certain way. And there's so much replay ability in the game. I love it. You know, that's why I have a trove chest behind me. But the idea here is, I think the art is really great. Production is second to none. Nobody even touches it. And there's mechanics. And if there weren't mechanics, I would never spend this much on a game ever. And even thinking back, it's still pretty silly, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, I like it. I enjoy the mechanics. It's beautiful, great table presence. It's fun. I feel like a kid playing with toys is basically what it comes down to. And a very recent game that adds to kind of this list for me is Septima. This certainly could have recency bias. However, this is a beautiful game. I mean, production on the deluxe copy, I can't speak to retail, but the art's going to be the same. And art is a big, you know, driver of this conversation here, is just beautiful. You know, you could subjectively say that this is an ugly game, I am sure, but I feel like most people would say that this thing is pretty unbelievable. The art across everything is beautiful. The production and quality of the deluxe version is absolutely incredible. This one is up there for production and art. And then the mechanics, I just released a full review on this game, so I'm not going to say one thing about mechanics. If you're interested at all, go click on that video. Either way, that ends the list for me. I want to know from you, first of all, go answer the poll question in the comments. What games for you are out there that check both boxes? Beautiful to you, you love the art and or production quality, and it is in your mind, a mechanical masterpiece. You absolutely love the way it plays. How many of those games are out there? And does a game anymore even have an excuse to not make its production pretty? We'll leave it at that. And that brings us to the end of episode 5 in the Board Game Secret Show. As always, I'm in debt to you if you make it this far. I really appreciate it. And if you comment, that is the thing in which is driving me now. So if you want to help me out, help me get through the day, give me just a little shot of dopamine, throw a comment out there. And, you know, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about the show and or anything we talked about on the show. Is it working for you? Is it not? It's been relatively successful compared to some other things on the channel, so I'm going to keep doing it for now. But let me know what you think about it. Sound off in the comments. Thank you very much, and have a great week.